Hello, and welcome to the Outlaws podcast with Kate and Shayla for professionals unlearning the rules of work and life. Ditch the shoulds and build what fits. Today's an Outlaws After Dark episode where we explore the side gigs, secret projects, and creative sparks people build alongside their corporate careers. We're talking about what happens when a problem in your community hits you so hard you can't ignore it. Before she ever created a business, Sandrine was a mother of three who kept hearing devastating stories about online grooming and bullying.
Instead of staying in the fear, she asked a different question. If the problem is dark, does the solution have to be? That question led her to All the Likes, a card game that teaches online safety through play, and later, Smoke, Mirrors and Filters, a game for teens and adults about our digital habits and the conversations we avoid. Sandrine said that she wasn't creative, and so the process of creating felt challenging at times, but she pushed through and discovered that her creativity was hidden deep within. What we love about this is that none of it started with a grand plan. It started with curiosity, courage, and a tiny step taken in the cracks of everyday life. Sandrine, hello and welcome to the Outlaws podcast.
Hi, Shay. Hi, Kate. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you here this morning. And this is one of our episodes where we chat to people who've built a side hustle alongside of their corporate career. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your side hustle, what it is.
So my side hustle is a company named Team Together Online. And the purpose, the objective of the company is to create card games to help achieve a healthier online life and better connections offline. So it's a bit of a niche thing. Initially, the focus was a card game to help kids learn online safety in a fun way. It's not really, it can be used as a teaching tool, but it's a proper game like you could use for game night and family game night, you know? So I've expanded to offline, online well-being and balance while I really started with online safety for kids.
So tell us about how it came about. You're a lawyer by trade. So tell us about the story of how it is that the idea came into being and how it is that it took off.
Yeah, the idea was it's 5-6 years ago. I always had this sort of feeling maybe since 2017 and 18. I kept on saying to my husband, I want to defend a cause. I want to advocate for a cause, like my job. I like being an advocate as a lawyer, as a barrister, but I want to do something more. I want to do advocacy in general. I just want to throw myself into something in addition to it. And I don't know what it is. And I looked for it for a couple of years. Maybe it's this idea, maybe it's that. And it felt like it came from my brain trying to find something. And in around Easter 2019, I heard of a tragedy of a young teenager losing his life in our social circles. And I was just pre-pandemic where nobody at that time was really aware of online dangers for kids. No, everybody is talking about it now. It's in the newspapers. You've got the e-safety commissioner helping protect kids and advocate for them. But at the time, there wasn't much about it. So I started to research what the dangers were online. And I was absolutely horrified. I was shocked. I thought I'm educated. I listen to the news. I read the newspaper. I care about my kids' safety. And I had no idea. And at the time, my kids were about 2 and 5.5, something like that. And I thought, this is horrible. I'm not aware of any of this. And I thought, I don't think this problem is going away. I don't think the nature of the internet is going to change. So I thought, you have to do something about this. And I thought I could feel people's unease and discomfort and anxiety around it. And I was, okay, if you don't bring this subject up in a positive way, parents are likely to turn their head the other way and put their heads in the sand, and kids are going to be bored. So I thought the best way to bring everybody together and to spread the message is through a game, basically. And I had a range of ideas of different media I could use, but the game was the main one.
Had you created games before? Is that something you'd done in the past, or? when you were...
No, never.
Right, okay.
I like games. I don't play enough, I feel, but yeah, I love games.
I think it's right because so my kids are a bit older now, and I feel as though I've gone along to a lot of those kind of online safety seminars at the schools and so on and so forth. They are pretty boring, right? Like they're necessary so that you
Yeah.
can understand what's going on, but they are pretty boring. And so I think what I like about what you've done is that you've tried to make it something that the whole family can talk about in a way that's not kind of adults preaching to kids.
Yes, and the idea exactly was to make it interactive. It was to have an everyday object to normalize the chat
Mm.
and to sort of, make it a normal chat and make it fun because that's how people connect, really. So, yeah.
So you had this idea, and then what's the process from getting an idea into reality?
It's funny because I never created anything before. So, and it just happened naturally. I thought it has to be a game that's fun, but simple enough because it's aiming at kids 6 to 10, 12.
Yep.
So I thought I'd just go for a classic game with a twist. So I think that was the basis, was a classic game. Initially, I was thinking of the game Happy Families, and I thought maybe I do that, and each character has a tip or something like that. And then so I started sketching the cards, and it was too crowded. It was too much. And at the same time, I was listening to some creative podcasts, and you need to simplify it. You need to simplify it. And then I thought of the game of Snap, which is actually very popular here in Australia. It's a game of Snap with a twist. Yeah, that's how it came together. And I just had the idea of what the cards would look like in my head.
So you created them at home, and then how do you get that out into the world?
Created them. So I just did with pen and paper, really. I sketched them with,
Well, you obviously
whatever
must be a bit
symbol.
creative. You must be a bit creative if you're sketching things like that.
I was very basic sketching, like I can't draw. Like very basic sketching, but I'm a very visual person, so I could almost see them in my mind. And what I did then is that I hired a designer to design them. Yes, I went to a platform where you can recruit designers and find your match. And I found a wonderful lady. And what was great is she really got me. She understood what I had in mind. And I think I could visualize 90% of the game. And for the 10% that I couldn't really see, I actually came up with great ideas.
Mm.
And then she sent me a PDF of the designs. And then it was a matter of finding a manufacturer. I looked in Australia first, and I couldn't really find anyone who could do custom cards, or sadly, very few, but at a price I couldn't afford. So then I found a manufacturer overseas, and had them made and delivered at home.
So it must have been a real kind of learning curve, I guess, for someone
Yeah.
who's never created anything. And I think you say on your website that you started initially with writing a bit of a blog and sort of built the website. So it was a bit of a step-by-step thing by the sounds of it,
Yeah.
that you kind of slowly went along. Did that make it feel less overwhelming?
Yeah, I think so I started putting things into place during the pandemic because I had the idea in sort of April 2019. And then there's always this moment, I think it's quite common, of, oh, I've got all these ideas, but I don't know where to start. And I'm all very excited, but I'm refining the whole concept of the thing. And then it's the end of the year, it's Christmas, and then bang, the pandemic hit. So, you lose your focus a bit, you attend to emergencies in your lifestyle. So I think putting a website together was easier than putting a card game together. And the whole story, if you're interested, is that I started with a picture book, the text for a picture book, because as I said, I can't draw. And that's what happened just before the pandemic. I pitched it, and I knew it was unlikely to go anywhere because according to my research, if it's a saturated market. So if you're not an author already, if you don't have a public profile, and if you don't have an agent, you're highly, 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 highly unlikely to be published. So I've got my little story. I put it back on the shelf. Then I went to the website. And then I thought, yeah, I really need to put something into the world. And I was, well, I don't need anyone to publish my card game. I can do it myself.
We've just recently done an episode on imposter syndrome. Were you feeling like an imposter at any point? Were you ever thinking, I don't know how to do this? It sounds like you were really brave.
Yeah, I had it because I don't consider myself someone creative. Like I'm a lawyer,
Mm.
And yeah, and I don't draw, I don't paint, I don't, yeah. So yeah, definitely. But I thought it's a good idea. And I talked to a couple of friends and said, yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. And I was, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I think what helped me get rid of the imposter syndrome is people's feedback saying, yeah, it's a great game. It's useful. And somebody tell me, wow, you are so creative, and makes me laugh every time because I was, okay, well, this is the first time I create anything. And I think maybe you learn if you put a product or anything into the world, you get outside of your own perception of yourself. You get
Mm.
other people's feedback, and you can focus on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
Do you think being a lawyer sort of helps with these types of projects, or was there anything about your legal training that hindered you in any way?
Both, I think. I think it helps because you're super organized, and you organize the whole process step by step. But sometimes you can ask yourself too many questions and, what if this and what if that? And I've got a friend she's a lawyer and she's an entrepreneur as well. And she said, like, you have to stop thinking like a lawyer. Just think about the sales. But then again, maybe it's my creative side. I'm still in a creative phase. I don't really care too much about the sales right now. So anyway, it was interesting.
I wonder if in lots of careers our creative side is dampened down quite a lot. And so we think that we're not creative, but actually we are creative. It's just kind of hidden a bit. And as soon as you kind of start digging, we discover it. I wonder if everyone's got creativity, some of which is more undiscovered than others, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
I reckon personally. I think everyone, and it depends, I guess, on how you define creativity, right? It's just
Yeah.
creating. It doesn't have to be. I think we all tend to think, oh, I'm not a creative person because I don't sing or I don't write music or I don't paint. But creativity is so much more than that. I think it's just, yeah, it can be. I think you can bring creativity into your profession, whatever you do. Even if it's the words you choose to express yourself, in court or whatever, there is a creative aspect to that. So I think perhaps lawyers who love their definitions maybe keep that definition of create. Well, I mean, I think most people tend to do that, actually. Let's lay off the lawyers for a moment. But yeah, creativity is quite a broad word, but I think we tend to think of it as quite a narrow concept, I think, maybe.
Yeah, it feels like creativity in the broad sense is anything you bring into the world, any novelty, and it's
Right.
and I think maybe even by definition you have to get off the beaten track and just bring what comes from you personally as an individual. And it's true that as lawyers, we don't really have the freedom to do that because we have to stay within the processes and within the procedures. Like we have to stay on track. So if there is scope for it, is extremely limited.
Yeah. I've talked about this before when I did like a quasi-judicial role. And I think looking back, that what I missed actually in that role was any kind of creativity. And again, as part of this series too, we've talked to someone about judicial well-being and when you're really kind of caught within a system. And I think in a lot of professions, we're caught in a system where there's not huge amounts of creativity. And so I think you're right, Kate, like there's ways in which we can get those little bits of creativity within that scope that we do. But what I love about this, Sandrine, is that, yeah, you sort of had this message going through your head of, oh, I'm not really creative and kind of should I even be doing this? But you just kept going, which I can imagine would be quite difficult to push through that because I would hear that, well, I'm not creative, not creative, not creative, and then maybe stop doing it.
Yeah, I could have totally done that knowing myself, but it's just this time I didn't. And I think what helped is that because it was during the pandemic, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and including podcasts on creativity.
Mm.
And one of them, the artist and the host, was explaining, if you tick all these boxes, you're on a solid project. And I remember, and I was writing about my project and listening to a podcast, and I thought, I tick all the boxes. How is that even possible? So maybe I do have something right here. That I was first like light bulb moment. And another podcast I was also listening to at the time, where I was listening to one of my favorite children's book author. And he was talking about this creative process, because for me, it was something that was really enjoyable, but very, very novel at the time. And I was very curious about this whole creative process. And I was listening to him, and then I listened to the podcast for a second time. And I was, he's talking about the process. He's talking about all the projects he's got at the moment. And I really remember this moment sitting at my desk, and I thought, they're so lucky, those people. They have all these creative projects. And then I stopped and I told myself, come on, you've got one. You've got one. It's a project, and just do it. And that's the moment where I decided I would just do it and push through. But then at the same time also, it was easy not to give up, because it's just like I had it in me. It's almost like being pregnant with that project. I had that game in me.
Right.
And very soon after, I knew I had a second game, and it was just there. So I just, interestingly, I didn't give up, although it was a lot of work. And also I had another significant moment, was like last year when I released my second game. But the first game I've got great feedback, but it's not, it's not the top selling game. Obviously, it's a local thing. And last year I was telling a friend that I was releasing a second game, and he said, "Oh, good. It means you're not stopping." And I looked at him and I said, "No, I never thought I would stop." And I saw on his face the wow. And just said something that seemingly was interesting for someone else. And then it made me realize that it was interesting that I never thought I would stop. But in the last year, though, because now that the creative phase has finished and concluded, I have to push the game, into the world.
Right.
I'm not super fun. I love talking about it. I love meeting people, but the whole marketing thing, like, it's not my thing. And many times this year I thought, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to stop. And one day I tell my friend, actually, I'm stopping now. And I try to picture myself doing this. And I feel like, no, I will never say those words. I will never stop.
I mean, there's always parts of business that you love and parts that you hate, isn't there?
Yeah. And I must say, as a lawyer, to go back to one of Kate's questions, the whole thing, the whole part I didn't devote enough thinking to was the marketing thing. In terms of time and energy and finances, that was the big,
Yeah.
So what do you do? So if I'm thinking for someone listening who's got maybe an idea that they want to create, just an idea that won't quit on them. And I think we've all had those ideas, right, where they just keep tapping away at our brains until we bring them to fruition. What would I guess, so like you say, it's one thing to create the product, even though I know feels a bit prosaic to call it a product. It's more, it's this fantastic creative thing that you've put out into the world. But the reality is, getting it out into the community, letting people know about it, marketing it. It's like networking.
Yeah.
It's a horrible word. But but bringing it to people to make sure people know about it. What's your advice to people who are listening? Is there anything you'd sort of suggest to get over that?
Like it goes back, I think, to a deeper thing, is that, what's your goal? What's your goal? Is your goal to become a top selling item? Is your goal to make it your new job? Is your goal to have your face everywhere? Or is your goal mainly to create and make a few people happy, and the number is irrelevant? And it's something that I'm deeply reflecting on at the moment. Now that the game has been in the world for a few years and the last one for a year, it's something I'm like, what's my goal? And maybe my goal is not what I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think it was?
I thought my goal was, I'm going to make a game. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be useful. It's going to be everywhere. But
Right.
at the same time, did I really see myself as, becoming the CEO of that big company and not being a lawyer? Not really. I think it's something, I think my goal was just to create it and help people and see it in the world. And I realized that for me, the goal that was obvious, but maybe I didn't really formulate clearly, it's at the end of the day, it helps people, number one. But number two, for me, it's a vehicle to experience many more things than just being a lawyer. And I realized that also when lately I said, oh, I'm going to be in this magazine or on this podcast or this and that. And someone said to me, oh, great, good for you. I hope it results into many sales, which is a lovely and very rational thing to say. And I thought I had this sort of discomfort around that. And I felt this is actually so much more than sales. And so I think for me, the goal I wasn't aware of or semi-aware of is it's given me the opportunity to find out about the creative process, about how to actually manufacture a game. I attended a number of fairs in the education industry. So I had a little sneak peek into the education industry, into the toy industry, a bit into the media now with various magazines, radio interviews, podcasts. So that in itself for me is being successful. And I think that was my goal, to step out of a little square box that is the legal industry. I mean, obviously, whenever I make some sales, I'm super excited. There was, somebody's interested. My first return customer was when I saw I had a second order from someone I didn't know, not just from a supportive friend. That was amazing. I was literally jumping up and down. So yeah, sales do matter, but for me, it's so much more than that.
I think that's such an interesting conversation to have because, I mean, even this segment, for example, around, side hustles that people do. And, certainly the conversations we've had on this podcast, I think all of them, Kate, haven't they, have all come because people have felt passionate about something or something has called to them. And, there's certainly maybe one side hustle that, turned into a massive big thing. But the others have been, very much that it's brought people joy, that it's brought them other things. It's not really been about money at all. And so I really like what you're saying there. And I think it's worth people thinking about that because often we hear in that, out in the world and start a side hustle and, you'll be able to stop working and you'll be able to, make loads of money. But actually, it's not always about that. And maybe it shouldn't be about that when you start.
Right. No, and it doesn't have to be, does it? Because I think too, I mean, whether that is your goal or not, I think all good ideas or all ideas that sort of catch on seem to have some element of, the words coming to mind is authenticity, and I'm not sure that's exactly the right word, but there's a real alignment. Yeah. I think the word passion is overused, and so I'm trying to think of another word.
Okay.
But there's a real alignment with what like, again, those ideas that kind of come to us and that feel like they need to be sort of get out into the world through us, which sounds a bit woo-woo, but I'm increasingly realizing I'm frequently sounding woo-woo, so I'm going to have to just stop apologizing for it. But, so but there's an alignment between what we can do uniquely well and the idea that we've had. And
it's sort of everything comes together at the right time. Like there was an external event that actually caused me to do some research and thought this is something that has to be done. And I think it was very interesting because in that moment it was so obvious I had to do something around this issue. It's only maybe a couple of days or hours after that I thought I was so aligned with it and so into it, and there was no question about it. I had to do it. I don't know how long after I realized, but that's gonna be the cause I want to advocate for and contribute to. So it didn't really come from the head. It really came from like deep within me, from my heart. And it's true that before I was looking for that cause intellectually, but it didn't resonate the same way. Like, I could advocate for global warming or whatever,
Mm.
like a good cause I rationally and intellectually and ethically believe in. Yeah, sure. But I
Mm.
didn't have that drive.
Mm.
And yeah, as you said, it's sort of aligned together. Yeah, sometimes it just comes to you, and I don't know if it's woo or not. I think it's just the reality of the creative process, which I think is fascinating because I never experienced it before.
Mm.
And it's just things. My second game, it's called Smoke, Mirrors, and Filters. And it's a conversation card game. You can play it in a relaxed way, just conversational, or in a competitive way if you want. And it's about all of our habits online. What sort of shopper are you? What sort of texter? Whatever. Some questions are fun, some are deeper. And anyway, I had the game put all together. And the only thing that was standing between myself and actually publishing the game is that I didn't have the title. I just didn't have the title. Like everything, all the questions were drafted. And I was also, if I don't have the title, like obviously can't publish it, and I cannot get a designer to work with. And I was stuck there for 4 months. Like everything was stopped for 4 months, and there's nothing I could do. And rationally, I put idea, the game is about this and a bit of humor, and the game is about that and this and that. And one day I was relaxing, very lucky me, in Italy by the sea, and I was really relaxed and looking at the coast. I don't know, it came out of nowhere. Boom, I had the title. It just came through the sky. Seriously, I don't even remember what it felt like, but the second before I didn't have it, and the second after it was in my mind. And I wrote it down, and I was, this is perfect. I don't know how everything clicked together, if it comes from the sky or if it comes from my neurons relaxing. I don't know, but yeah, it feels like it comes to you, it aligns in that sort of magical moment, and whatever it is, it's the most amazing thing.
Sometimes those things come in, like you're in the shower, you're sort of, your brain,
Yeah.
I think it's your brain waves go into I think it's called I'm going to mangle it, but I think it's beta wave, like where there's certain levels that our brains work at, and that you're in the shower or you're sort of relaxed or your brains are in a different way. I think it's called a beta wave, but I could be wrong. I'll have to dig that up. But that's
one of those waves.
One of those waves, whether it's an alpha wave or a beta wave, or I could just be mixing this up completely. But it's sort of like the meditative state. I find that when I'm swimming, not that I swim very often, but that's the sort of you're doing something, so your brain is sort of engaged, but there is that you've sort of, you've accessed to sort of almost like a different sort of state. And that's honestly where I think a lot of people talk about that. Their best ideas come if they're driving or if they're in the shower or if, doing something else that's kind of low stakes. That's when those, and they feel like downloads really, don't they? Those kind of ideas will come to you. But I always feel it's always sort of in there.
It's like it's brewing in the background, and then sort of bubbles up to the surface. Yeah.
But it just takes something to make it kind of them all click together. I call it putting it into, shows my age. I always call it putting it into my Commodore 64 brain. And then, so there's input.
Okay, there will actually be people that listen to this podcast that don't know what that is.
No, no. Well, look, to be honest with you, I don't really. No, but the Commodore 64 was one of the earlier personal computers, really slow. But I sort of talk about things like that when I go, let me put it into my Commodore 64 and kind of like, so there's input from that and there's input from that and then there's input from that. And I know eventually those elements will kind of synthesize in some way and eventually it'll go click, 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 click and spit out the answer. Because everything sort of, it's like almost like a recipe, right? All the ingredients, the inputs have come in, but it just takes a while for the sort of the answer or whatever that is to bubble up. And that's off. I mean, I'm not just talking about a kind of a creative project there, but any sort of problem or something, sometimes it's just like, let's stick that in the Commodore 64 and allow it to sort of go through its processes, and eventually the answer will come out like that old computer paper with the things down the side like come out, pop out of
But that's something that many artists and creatives describe. Like all of a sudden it's there and it comes very easily. And I think because we use different parts of our brain, you don't see the whole process, as lawyers, if you draft.
It's
if
sort of
you
going
follow
on.
the process. It's
No,
like
and I
you
think
know
our
it,
brains are going on always in the background.
but you're not aware of it, and all of a sudden it's like there's this, you put all your information into your computer and you're aware of that, and you think about it, you're aware of that, and as you said, Kate, then you're not aware, you're thinking about it, but then you don't even see it when it's close to hitting the surface. You just have that moment where it's at the surface, and many creatives describe that. And I think if you're really into what you're doing, and I think if it really comes from you, like the inner you and what you're driven by, rather than 100% your intellect, I think everybody can experience that.
Right. And I think sometimes just slowing the brain down enough to sort of allow those answers to come out, like gardening or swimming or whatever it is for people, walking in the shower, whenever it is that your brain kind of relaxing by the coast initially, which is probably the best choice
I
out
want to
of
go
all of
back
those
now
options I just gave.
for
But
the
it's
third game.
yeah.
But Kate,
you're
we talked about that in the Getting Unstuck episode as well. Is finding those minutes and those moments when you're not doing anything, because I think we strive so often for the answers. We try so hard to find the answers. We put so much effort. And my experience, and I was talking to someone else about this yesterday, and they agreed, when you stop striving sometimes, then the answers seem to come. And I wonder if it's a similar thing where
think it is.
your brain goes, okay, let me let out the creative bit. The creative bit then comes up with the answer. But when we're striving so hard and kind of concentrating and so intense all of the time, which is how we're taught to act in corporate jobs, right? It's like bang, bang, bang. You've got to get this done, that done, that done. You've got to know the answers straight away. Can you imagine, sitting in a corporate office and going, look, I'm actually just going to sit in this chair for half an hour and look out the window while I think about this problem? People just don't do that, do they?
But you are sort of allowed to do that in places, correct me if I'm wrong, and it may be just that I've seen it on a movie or something, but isn't it at Google or those kind of Silicon Valley type startups, they've got ping pong tables and all that kind of stuff, because I think there's an awareness that for really great ideas to come, sometimes you have to be doing other stuff, and then
but not in any corporate workplace I've been in.
Tables in corporate law firms. I've never seen one.
No,
it's probably why I'm not still there, right?
But everything you said is also reflected by childhood professionals who say that if your kids are overloaded with extracurricular activities or always on screens, and they don't have this free time where they're bored and they need to be bored, they're going to miss out on a lot of creative development. And it's the same thing. You have to slow down, and it's what's recommended for kids, and I think it's also recommended for adults. You don't have space for boredom and creativity. Ideas won't have this space to come through and to come through because
but the importance of play. I also think too, I teach torts is one of my favorite subject to teach, but often when students come at that subject, it's not quite like other subjects. They've often come from having done crim law, and in WA it's a code, so they have the law in a book basically, which is exactly what you think law is going to be. And then you hit torts, which is all like, what? And I always sort of say to students, sometimes you can try and focus too hard on getting an answer, whereas sometimes you have to almost like soften your focus, like you're looking at a magic eye painting. You know how those paintings... You keep staring at it, you don't get it. You have to soften your focus, and then the picture can emerge. And I always think as I said, I always say that when at the beginning of the semester for teaching torts. But I also, the other one I use too, and as you were talking before, Sandrine, that made me think of that. Well, you can chase too hard for an answer. Is it an analogy, a metaphor? I'm not sure. I always mix those two up. If you break an egg, and then a little bit of shell is in it, and you have to, you can't go directly onto the shell, otherwise it moves away. You have to kind of,
I love it.
Kind of trick it into thinking you're not coming after it, and sort of go off to the side a bit, and then you'll get it and get it out of the bowl, so you can make your scrambled eggs without crunch or whatever you're doing.
Oh, I love the metaphor. You just have to sometimes step back, take it. Maybe it's an analogy.
I don't know.
You have to relax. And you have to relax, I think. You know,
And
if
just
you're not
relax,
relaxing,
yeah.
you're never going to get it. It's going to slip away from you the whole time. Yeah,
So
you're right.
just
I love it.
soften it. As I said, don't let that eggshell know you're coming.
That's good. I love it.
That
Yeah.
is a good one, Kate.
I
I
don't know
like
if that
that one.
helps students when they're learning torts, but it certainly is
Yeah.
to me. It's kind of like you can overthink things sometimes,
Mm.
and that you're not going to get the answer. If you just back off a little bit and let it evolve and emerge, you're going to do much better. That's hard. It's hard, right? It's hard to do that.
Yeah. So, Sandrine, for someone who is like you, maybe has an idea that is, pushing to get out of their head, or an idea that they've got recorded down in their notes app that they wrote down there in March of this year and they haven't done anything else since then. What advice would you give them? What's a small step that they could do to just kind of start getting it out into the world?
Just stop thinking. Just do it. Follow your heart. If you have that drive, just follow it, and maybe talk to a couple of friends and they tell you it's a good idea. Yeah, just focus on the external feedback that you've got as early as possible. That helps. And just stop thinking too much. Do it, because at the end of the day, I think it's all about the experience. And and maybe
Stop
if it's
thinking too
something
much,
creative,
lawyers.
sorry.
I think the message is, lawyers, stop thinking so much.
Yeah.
That could be
Yeah,
our next
maybe.
T-shirt for the season, Shayla.
Yeah,
Discomfort is
stop thinking.
uncomfortable with season 1, and I think lawyers, just stop thinking.
Yeah, if there's something good in it, just
Yeah,
do
no,
it,
no, right.
take it, follow it. Maybe I think my best advice would be look at other people around you, because we're afraid to be judged, I think, for many reasons. Maybe as individuals, society, we have to belong to boxes, and as lawyers. But look at other people around you who have tried things and are experimenting. Do you judge them? No, you're
No.
like, oh, it's great what they're doing. And I think we all have that in us, but some of us stop ourselves, sadly, for many reasons. And some reasons are connected to our profession, because, it takes so much of our identity to be lawyers. It's almost like, oh, if I'm a lawyer, I can't be anything else. But I think it comes to a point like, if you're trying to create something, it's because you want to be more. It doesn't mean that you can't be both, but you're allowed to have more. You're allowed to experience more.
That's really great advice. And I just wanted to say that I think also that idea of talking to people about your idea is great advice, because I've sort of hung out in sort of small business circles or entrepreneurial circles or whatever. And sometimes there's this hesitation to chat to people about your ideas, because people go, oh, well, then they'll steal my idea and I can't possibly share it. But honestly,
Oh, yeah, I had that too.
the work is in executing the idea. People have ideas, millions of ideas every day, and 99% of people don't know anything about them. So I think people shouldn't be scared to have conversations and go, here's my idea, what do you reckon? Because you get so much great feedback from people when you do that.
Yeah,
so.
and I think that was one of the challenges I had as a lawyer. Exactly. Forgot about it now, because I think I'm beyond this stage, but I certainly experienced that. I was, what if someone steals my idea? But at the same time, if you don't put it outside in the world, it will remain on your desk forever. So that's the risk. But also then I try to tell myself, but no one is going to do it exactly the way I'm doing it, because there's only one me, there's only one Shayla, there's only one Kate, and the way it's going to be executed, no one else can execute it the way you do. So I took some comfort into that. And also, as you said, most people won't do anything anyway. They don't. Also, I took some comfort and had a deep belief in nobody has my drive, because nobody is me. So we all have our own drive. And if you really do the thing that is meaningful for you, nobody will be able to match your drive, and nobody will execute it the way you do. And that's all that matters. And maybe one day my game will be copied, but it won't be my game exactly. And it won't be the first one, and it won't be, so I took comfort in all these things, but I certainly went through this phase too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to have you, not least because I just love listening to the melodic French accent and could listen to it all day. But
Thank you.
It's been really great fun. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sandrine.
Thank you for having me. It was really great to get to chat to both of you as a fan of the podcast. So thanks.
That was such an interesting conversation, and I love how we keep coming back to the same themes no matter what we're talking about or who we're talking with. Building some space in, what's creativity anyway, and how do we push forward with creative ideas, but also too, the best ideas happen when we're doing something else.
Yeah, and just unexpectedly, I like the way she just said it, just kind of came from the sky.
Right.
And I think that's so true, isn't it? That
Mm,
again, when we find that space, those ideas seem to flow. So, and you're
mm,
right, themes over and over again. People just experiencing the same things.
mm.
Yeah.
It's almost like as humans, we share more similarities than differences.
Yes.
Imagine.
And
Crazy
that
thought.
we don't talk about them enough.
For sure. So hopefully people, again, I think what I love too about the side gig, the side hustle, I
Outlaws
have
After
had
Dark.
feedback that I was robbed with not saying side hustler, but that's something I'll just have to leave
Take
in
to the
your
grave.
conscience, Shayla. Um, is that actually, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be about making money. It can actually just be about something that brings you joy. And is almost like not scratching an itch, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sandrine saw a problem and a solution that she wanted to bring forward. And it's the same when we talked to Katie Sirikowski last season. Her cattle business.
Mm.
It's just something that seems to be really aligned with who she is, and whether it makes money or not, there's so much to be gained from that side hustle, and just that is just enough of a reason of and by itself, which is enjoyment, joy.
Yeah.
But then I think sometimes too, when there is that alignment, that seems to be when they're the ideas I think that do really have legs, much like
Mm.
Katie's cattle. But because there's that alignment between,
Yeah.
I think it's easier to push something forward that you really believe in than not. So I think
Yeah.
yeah, that seems to be the precursor to real success anyway, but it doesn't have to be about that. It can just be about the joy itself.
Yeah. And I think for people who maybe are feeling a bit unsettled in their career, I mean, maybe the answer is not to, change jobs or to kind of make big wholesale changes. Maybe it is just to try and find something on the side
Yeah.
I love the way that Sandrine described how it just exposed her to so many different things in life that she hadn't been exposed to before. So it's almost like this little kind of side adventure that you get to have
Yeah.
that you don't get to have
Side
in your
quest.
normal. Yeah, exactly. A
Yeah.
side quest. Yeah. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think certainly something for people to think about. So hopefully that was useful, Outlaws. Let us know if it was useful and if you enjoyed this episode. Connect with us on all of the social media platforms that we're on. Have a great week, Kate.
You too. Thanks, Shayla. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.